Delete social media before it rewrites your brain. I know that sounds dramatic, like something you'd read in a clickbait caption under a shaky TikTok, but I'm not saying it as a slogan. For years, I thought I had a healthy relationship with my phone. I wasn't posting selfies every day. I didn't care about getting verified. I didn't even upload that much. I told myself, I'm just here to stay informed, to laugh a bit, to support my friends. You've probably said something similar. I used social media the way everyone around me did. A reel in the bathroom, a scroll in line at the supermarket, a quick check before bed, a quick check the moment I woke up, a quick check in the middle of a conversation when the other person looked away for 2 seconds. I never decided to live like that. It just happened. No big decision, just thousands of tiny, invisible yeses. At first it felt harmless. I had a job, I trained in the gym, I saw my partner, I went out with friends. My life looked fine from the outside, and honestly from the inside too. I wasn't crying over likes. I wasn't obsessively checking my follower count. I wasn't making "I quit social media" announcement posts. I was just another guy with a phone in his hand. And that's why I didn't notice the shift. Because it didn't start with anxiety attacks or breakdowns. It started with something much smaller, much more normal. I started living slightly off. Not broken, just off by a few degrees. I'd sit down to work and tell myself, let me just check Instagram for a second, then I'll focus. 30 minutes later, I'd be deep into some stranger's vacation photos, watching a guy in Miami spray champagne on a rented yacht. I'd close the app, open the laptop, and suddenly the document in front of me felt heavier than before. My brain was still back there, on the feed, chasing the next thing. Or I'd be with my partner on the couch. The movie was playing, the room was quiet, and there I was, thumb flicking up, 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 my eyes catching pieces of other people's lives. Newborns, breakups, promotions. I said yes. I quit my job to follow my dream. Bought my first house at 24. I wasn't jealous. That's the dangerous part. I told myself I wasn't jealous, so I thought I was safe. But what I really was flooded. Flooded with stories that my brain kept comparing to mine, even when I wasn't consciously doing it. I'd lock the phone, look at my own living room, my own face in the TV reflection, and everything suddenly looked lower resolution. Like my life was the behind the scenes, and the real movie was happening somewhere inside that glowing rectangle. I didn't post about it. I didn't talk about it. How do you even say it? Hey, I feel weird about my life because I watch strangers on my phone too much. It sounds pathetic, so you keep it for yourself. You call it, I'm tired, or I'm stressed from work, or it's just a phase. Meanwhile, something else was changing that I didn't notice at all. The way I reacted to things. Before, if a friend said something I didn't agree with, I'd think for a second, ask a question, maybe argue a bit, then move on. After a few years of social media, I'd feel my body jump to the fight even before my mind understood what was happening. Like my nervous system had learned that disagreement equals war. I'd read a headline and feel instant outrage before I'd even finished the article. I'd see a take I didn't like and feel a small itch under my skin, like my thumbs wanted to start typing something sharp, something that would destroy the other person. I didn't type it most of the time, but the impulse was there. That's what scared me later. When did I become someone whose first instinct is to attack, to respond, to clap back? When did disagreement stop being a moment for curiosity and start being a trigger for adrenaline? The honest answer is, it didn't happen in one night. It happened silently while I was just scrolling. No warning, no pop-up saying, hey, we're about to update your emotional firmware. Just repetition. Hundreds of videos, thousands of arguments, millions of microsignals teaching my brain what gets rewarded. Intensity, speed, certainty, outrage. Social media didn't ask me, "Can we rewire you?" It just gave me a simple deal. Every time you react fast and strong, we'll give you a hit of stimulation. Every time you slow down, think, breathe, we'll make you feel bored. And slowly, I started to lose the ability to be bored. Waiting 5 minutes in a line without my phone started to feel like torture. Watching a full movie without checking my notifications felt like an achievement. Reading a book for 30 minutes straight felt like a marathon. I didn't realize that was a symptom. I thought I had just lost focus because I was tired. But the truth is uglier. I had trained my brain to live in a permanent highlight reel. Real life, by comparison, felt flat. One evening, something small happened that finally made me see it. I was at dinner with friends. Nothing special, just a normal night in a normal restaurant. At some point, I got up to go to the bathroom. As soon as I locked the door, my hand grabbed my phone automatically. Not I decided to check my phone. My hand moved before I even had a thought. And then the Wi-Fi didn't reach the bathroom. No connection, no feed, no stories, nothing. I remember this ridiculous wave of frustration rising in my chest, not because of a real problem, because I couldn't scroll for 40 seconds on the toilet. In that moment, I caught a clear glimpse of myself from the outside. Grown man in a bathroom, angry because he can't see strangers' lives for 1 minute. That was the first time a sentence crossed my mind that I couldn't ignore anymore. This isn't normal, and it's not an accident. When that sentence finally appeared in my head, this isn't normal and it's not an accident, I didn't delete anything. I didn't throw my phone away. I didn't do a digital detox. I didn't go live in the woods and meditate with goats. I did exactly what my rewired brain had been trained to do. I opened YouTube. I typed social media addiction into the search bar, but not because I thought I was addicted. I typed it half ironically, like you do when you're not ready to admit something yet. Let's see what the internet says about this, I thought, while using the same internet that was making me feel like this. That's when I started to understand what was actually going on behind the glass. I learned that my attention wasn't just valuable, it was the product. Platforms don't exist to help me stay in touch. They exist to sell the fact that I'm looking at something to someone else. The longer I look, the more valuable I become. Suddenly, all those design choices started to make uncomfortable sense. Infinite scroll was not a UX miracle. It was a way to remove friction so my thumb never had a reason to stop. Notifications weren't reminders. They were little hooks thrown into my brain, colored red on purpose because red feels urgent, like blood, like danger. Suggested for you wasn't a friendly recommendation. It was an algorithm saying, "We studied you. We know what keeps you here. Let us feed it to you." I discovered something that genuinely scared me. The platforms I was using weren't neutral. They weren't a mirror. They were more like a lab. Every swipe, every pause, every rewatch was data. Not data about what I liked, but data about what kept me stimulated. That's a very important difference. I like learning, but learning is effortful. Outrage, on the other hand, is instant. Curiosity requires space, uncertainty, slow thinking. Anger is fast, clean, and gives you a temporary sense of power. If you're a machine whose only job is to maximize my screen time, what are you going to show me more of? The thing that makes me lock my phone and think? Or the thing that makes me stay and react? I started to notice patterns in my own feed. Whenever I watched one video of someone ranting about politics, my homepage turned into a war zone. Hot takes, duets, stitches. He destroyed her. She humiliated him. No one is saying this, but... And every time I let myself get pulled in, just for a second, the algorithm learned that this is what works on me. It didn't care whether I agreed or disagreed. All it cared about was that my eyes stayed on the screen, and my body forgot about the room it was in. I realized something ugly. The internet wasn't making the world more angry out of ideology. It was doing it out of efficiency. Outrage is simply a highly efficient fuel. It burns fast, burns bright, and keeps you coming back. That's what rewiring looks like in practice. Not brainwashing with slogans, but slow training through repetition. Imagine you go to the gym every day, but instead of training your legs, you only train your right arm. Every day, curls and more curls. At first, nothing big changes. After a while, though, your body becomes unbalanced. One arm bigger, one arm weaker. You look weird, but you don't notice because it happened gradually. Social media did that to my emotional muscles. It overtrained my reactivity and completely neglected my ability to stay with one thing, one feeling, one problem without escaping it. I became world-class at jumping from dopamine hit to dopamine hit, terrible at sitting with discomfort and working through it. I noticed it when real life stopped giving me the same high as conflict online. A normal conversation felt slow compared to a comment section. A normal disagreement with someone I loved felt unsatisfying because it didn't end with a quote tweet and a mic drop. My brain had been trained to expect a very specific rhythm. Stimulus, reaction, reward. Over and over again. It showed up at work too. When a task was boring, I felt an urge to escape to something more intense instead of pushing through. When an email triggered me, I'd feel my fingers itching to write something sharp, to win, to be right, even though there was nothing to win in a professional thread. I wasn't just distracted anymore. I was being pulled. And the worst part? I was volunteering. No one forced me to open the apps. No one forced me to swipe up 100 times a day. That's what makes it so hard to admit. If someone was physically standing behind you, grabbing your head and turning it toward a screen all day, you'd call it abuse. You'd call the police. But when the same thing happens through notifications and micro habits, it feels like your own choice. I can stop whenever I want, you tell yourself. I'm just tired today. I just need to relax. So you keep feeding the machine that's training you. One night, lying in bed, I watched a video where someone said, "Social media isn't free. You're paying with your future attention span." It sounded dramatic, so I almost scrolled past it. But something about that idea stuck. If I keep training my brain like this for another 5 years, what exactly am I going to be good at? What skills am I actually developing? Answering that question honestly was painful. I was becoming good at consuming, not creating. Good at reacting, not reflecting. Good at comparing, not living. And slowly, without any big catastrophe, my baseline state shifted. I wasn't fully present anywhere. Not at work, not in the gym, not with the person I loved. My body would be in the room, nodding, talking, doing the thing. My mind would be half a swipe away, replaying a reel I watched, a comment I read, a notification I might have missed. That's what I mean by rewiring. My default mode used to be reality, interrupted by notifications. Now my default mode was the feed, interrupted by reality. Once you see it, it's impossible to unsee. The question becomes, what are you supposed to do about it? You can't just throw your phone in a river. You probably need it for work, for maps, for calls, for basic life stuff. You can't stop the entire world and go back to the Nokia era. So how do you fight something that lives in your pocket, pays your bills, entertains you, informs you, and slowly eats parts of you at the same time? I didn't have a clean answer. All I had was a growing sense that if I waited for the perfect moment to change, the rewiring would only go deeper. And one day, I saw exactly what it had already cost me. Knowing all of this didn't magically fix anything. Understanding the problem is the part that feels smart. Changing your behavior is the part that feels stupid, clumsy, uncomfortable. For a while, I stayed in that in-between space. I knew social media was rewiring me. I knew it was costing me focus, presence, and real memory. And yet I kept opening the apps, like a smoker who has read every book about nicotine, but still lights up after dinner. The turning point wasn't some huge crisis. No scandal, no breakup, no breakdown. It was something embarrassingly small. One night, after a long day, my partner fell asleep early. The house was finally quiet. This rare island of silence in the middle of a noisy week opened up in front of me. I had two options. I could pick up a book I had been meaning to read for months, or I could relax with my phone. You already know what I chose. I told myself, just 10 minutes. 10 turned into 90. I went from a funny clip to a thread about a celebrity cheating, to a video about a war, to a guy yelling about productivity, to a meme, to a girl explaining why modern relationships are doomed. None of it was connected. None of it mattered. When I finally looked up, my neck hurt, my eyes were dry, and the house felt heavier. I hadn't rested. I hadn't learned anything. I hadn't created anything. I had just donated an hour and a half of my life to a machine that would forget me the second I closed the app. I stood up, went to the bedroom, and watched my partner sleep. Her breathing was slow and steady. The baby moved under the blanket, and I had this sudden, clear, almost painful thought. One day, I'm going to tell this kid about this time in our life. What story do I want to tell? Yeah, I was there, but mostly I was scrolling. That was the moment I felt something inside me snap into alignment. Not perfectly, but enough. I went back to the living room, sat down, unlocked my phone, and did the thing I had been postponing for months. I didn't make a big dramatic speech to the camera. I didn't post a goodbye story. I just held my thumb on the icon until it started to shake. Delete app. Delete app. Delete app. Instagram, gone. TikTok, gone. Twitter, gone. LinkedIn followed soon after. The screen looked strangely empty, like a city after a power outage. For a second, I felt a wave of panic. What if I missed something important? Important? Where? On a stranger's page? In a comment section? In a feed that never even notices I'm there? The panic passed, and something else took its place. Boredom. Real, raw boredom. The first week was not romantic. It was weird. My hand kept reaching for a phone full of ghosts. I'd unlock it without thinking and stare at the home screen, confused, like walking into a room and forgetting why you're there. That's when I realized how deep the rewiring had gone. The apps were gone, but the pathways were still there, carved into my habits. I had to rebuild those pathways on purpose. I started small because big promises usually fail. Instead of, I will never touch my phone again, I made rules like, no phone for the first 30 minutes after waking up, phone out of reach during meals, no phone in the bathroom, no scrolling in bed. At first, these rules felt childish. Who needs rules to not bring a phone to the toilet? Apparently, I did. You don't realize how much your day is sliced into tiny pieces of distraction until you try to stop. The silence that appears is uncomfortable. You're used to having your attention outsourced. Suddenly, you're alone with your own thoughts again. And it's loud in there. But something unexpected happened in that silence. Tiny things started to feel bigger again. Making coffee stopped being a background activity you do half on autopilot while watching a reel. It became an actual moment. The smell, the sound, the warmth in your hands. Walking outside without headphones felt strange at first, then almost nostalgic. You start hearing the world again. Cars, voices, birds, the random cough of a stranger, your own footsteps. My focus didn't come back overnight. For a while, reading more than 3 pages of a book felt like hitting a wall. I'd notice my eyes wanting to jump, my brain asking, where's the reward? Where's the next hit? But if I pushed through that first wall, something interesting waited on the other side. A different kind of satisfaction. Not the bright, sharp rush of a notification, but a slower, deeper sense of, I am here, doing one thing, and that's enough. My relationship changed too, in ways that are hard to measure but impossible to ignore. Conversations went from half plus half attention to something closer to whole. We argued less about nothing because my brain wasn't constantly loaded with other people's drama. I stopped bringing random internet fights into my living room. Now here's the part where I have to be honest with you. Deleting social media didn't turn my life into a movie. It didn't solve all my problems. I still get tired. I still procrastinate. I still have days where my brain feels like mush. I still use technology. You are literally watching this on YouTube, which is technically social media. I'm not preaching from a mountain. I'm just someone who realized that the price I was paying was no longer worth what I was getting back. The rewiring doesn't stop just because you delete a few apps. The world is still built to capture your attention. The feeds are still waiting. The outrage is still profitable. But the difference now is that I actually notice what it does to me. I feel the pull, and I get to decide more often whether I want to follow it or not. If you've watched this far, there's a good chance you've felt some of the same shifts in yourself. Less patience, more noise. Less presence, more comparison. Less creation, more consumption. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not your dad, and I'm not your therapist. But I will give you something practical, something you can't unhear. For the next week, every time you close an app, ask yourself one question. Do I feel more like myself or less? Not, was it interesting? Not, did I laugh? Not, did I learn a fact I can forget tomorrow? Just, do I feel more like me or less like me? If the answer keeps being less, you already know what you need to do. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to delete everything forever. But at some point, you will have to pick a side, your brain or their business model. Because social media is not just something you use, it is something that uses you. Cheers.